Good morning. My name is Heather Viron. My pronouns are she and her, and I will be your service leader today. I have some announcements. We hope you'll join us on March 9th for a special service to mark Women's History Month, when we'll be joined by a women's choir and the founders of Pensacola's Femme Fest. It's not too late for any UUCP women who want to sing with us to get involved, so if you're interested, please contact Claire Helton or Laura Keith King for details. We will hold a newcomer orientation today following the service. Newcomer orientation is a time for recent visitors, prospective members and friends, and recent members or friends to learn more about how UUCP functions, how to get involved, and what it means to be a member or friend of our congregation. See Lauren Ansaldo, Membership Team Leader, for questions. And finally, join us Sunday, March 30th after the service for Jack and Kate Wolverton's See You Soon party. In the spirit of their travels, we're asking everyone to bring a finger food from their favorite part of the world. Dessert and drinks will be provided. Let's celebrate their time here with us and send them on their way with lots of love and laughter. And see Mary Beth Ramsey for any further details. Okay, and I did mean to say welcome to everyone who is here today, whether you're a first-time visitor or whether you've been coming for a long time. We welcome you. If you're watching online, we welcome you as well. Happy to have everyone here today. This is a place where you belong. And now for our video.
The Unitarian Universalist Church of Pensacola, the 8 Principles.
Number 1, the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
Number 2, justice, equity, and compassion in human relation.
Number 3, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregation.
Number 4, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning.
Number 5, the right of conscience and the use of democratic process within our congregation and in society at large.
Number 6, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all.
Number 7, respect for the interdependent web of existence,
of which we are all a part.
Number 8, active commitment to dismantle racism and other oppression in ourselves and our institutions.
And now we will have some opening words and our chalice lighting. The opening words are adapted from the poem This Faith by Heidi Cottam. Let us be a faith that gathers, reaching for one another through the walls of hate others build. Let us be a faith that sees a vision of a better world, more compassionate, more just, more holy, and with more love. Let us be the ones who do not tread lightly in this world, but light it up with our love, who hold up the mirror of worth and dignity, who are the sanctuary others seek. But first, let us be a faith that worships together here, this morning, in this space, at this moment. Let us be of faith. And now we will have our opening hymn. If you would stand if you're willing or able. It's number 155 in your gray hymnal, Circle Round for Freedom, number 155. The melody is the middle line. The melody is the middle line in the hymnal. And please remain standing for our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you, choir. Now will be a time for our joys and sorrows, and as a reminder, this portion of the service is not recorded. I will light a candle first for the world concerns that we are all concerned about, all the things going on in the world, around the world, and here at home. I will light that candle first, and then we will line up on either side and share our joys and sorrows with the congregation. Now we will have a time for all ages. It's a book called I Am Enough, written by Grace Byers.
I Am Enough by Grace Byers. Pictures by Keturah A. Bobo. Like the sun, I'm here to shine. Like the voice, I'm here to sing. Like the bird, I'm here to fly and soar high over everything. Like the trees, I'm here to grow. Like the mountains, here to stand. Like time, I'm here to be and be everything I can. Like the champ, I'm here to fight. Like the heart, I'm here to love. Like a ladder, here to climb, and like the air, to rise above. Like the wind, I'm here to push. Like a rope, I'm here to pull. Like the rain, I'm here to pour and drip and fall until I'm full. Like the moon, I'm here to dream. Like the student, here to learn. Like the water, here to swell. Like the fire, here to burn. Like the winner, I'm here to win. And if I don't, get up again. I know that I may sometimes cry, but even then, I'm here to try. I'm not meant to be like you. You're not meant to be like me. Sometimes we will get along, and sometimes we will disagree. I know that we don't look the same. Our skin, our eyes, our hair, our frame. But that does not dictate our worth. We both have places here on earth. And in the end, we are right here to live a life of love, not fear. To help each other when it's tough. To say together, I am enough.
And now we will sing the children out. And now we're going to hear from Lori Winterberg about the pledge drive.
So this is the last time this year you're going to hear from me about the pledge drive. The last time. Well, maybe. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of our members and all of our friends. Yes, you are all in. And that's a thinly veiled reference to the theme of this year's budget drive. Whether you got all in and you submitted your pledge online through our website, or perhaps you filled out a paper form to get all in, or even mailed it, sent me an email, let us know that you're making a financial pledge. To dovetail after the concerns that Nancy expressed, especially now, considering current events that are leaving many of us grappling with a sense of uncertainty. about the future, about the big picture future, and about our own individual futures, stuff that's close to home. For some folks, they may be a little bit hesitant to submit your pledge or to make a financial commitment at this point. That is understandable. But right now, even more so, it's important that you can do what you can do to assure that UUCP continues to be such an important part of our community. Our vision statement, I think, captures this best. Our vision statement is to celebrate diversity, to strive for justice, and to inspire love. Regardless of the amount that you pledged, it's important that you pledge. And so today, at the end of the day, we'll be doing some tallying to see exactly how far we got to our goal of $100,000 in pledges. And you'll hear more about that part a little bit later as we get closer to our annual meeting in May, where everybody who is a member of this congregation will have an opportunity to vote on our annual balanced budget for the next year, which begins on 1 July. Thank you.
At this time, we'll take up the offering. Thank you, musicians. Beautiful job. And now we're going to sing our budget drive song, I'm All In. I'm all in.
This is mostly the chorus. We're all going to sing it together, probably clap our hands on it, right? We're going to have some saxophone because we all know that saxophone is a money magnet. We're going to do the key of D for dough. Oh, yeah. Let's get the choir members up here and inspire.
Thank you, choir and musicians. Wonderful. Okay. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce today's speaker, UUCP member, Dr. Lauren Ansaldo. Lauren is a social worker and concerned citizen. Her talk this morning considers the continuing appeal of authoritarianism and how democratically minded people might respond. Lauren will draw on the tradition of prophetic voices of antifascists such as Simone Weil and Erich Fromm. This is the first Sunday service in a two-part series, with the next service being presented on March 16th. Welcome, Dr. Lauren Ansaldo.
Thank you, Heather. I actually was watching a TV show the other day and I heard the Kenny Loggins I'm All Right song and I was like, that's the UUCP budget song. I think it had been a minute since I'd heard the original, so it didn't really resonate with me until I saw that and remembered. Okay, so shifting gears. So wouldn't you know it, freedom is a slippery thing. Maybe you've been thinking that recently. Freedom, a state of being free, being able to make choices and act without restrictions, having rights to determine one's course in life. We UUs tend to conceptualize freedom as an emancipatory ideal, a principle that has inspired countless liberation movements. And we may imagine that freedom, once secured through struggle and enshrined in law, is something they can never take away. But let's get real. Our forebears have watched freedom vanish before their very eyes, and we're watching this happen right now. An incomprehensible consolidation of power, violation of rules and laws, billionaires and teenagers, apparently without oversight or restraint, calling the shots that affect the lives of millions of people here and around the world. For federal workers like me, receiving emails day after day after day urging us to resign or face termination without cause or warning, and knowing that other employees have been dismissed in the thousands. All of this creates chaos and fear designed to promote loyalty and obedience, and it is not fun. So for self-care, I've been turning to an assorted group of people I admire who I'm calling prophetic voices. I labeled pages in a pretty journal that I had for each person with space for me to write notes and quotes for reflection. And this talk is a bit about some of those thoughtful, devoted people who spoke up and stood up during moments like these. We have so much to gain from them during these turbulent times. According to the sources of our UU faith, everyday prophets are people whose words and deeds challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. History has plenty to teach us about the transitory nature of freedom in our modern world. Freedom does not come easily, yet freedom can be stripped from us so easily. The philosopher Jason Stanley, author of How Fascism Works, asserts that fascism is not a new fight, but is a permanent temptation. The authoritarian, far-right, ultra-nationalist political ideology known as fascism, remember it? We thought we had defeated it, but it haunts us. To put it another way, freedom is a constant struggle. So says the title of a book by the feminist political activist and scholar Angela Davis. Consider this example from 1865. The Union Army had won the Civil War and enslaved people were freed under the Emancipation Proclamation. The United States was in the period known as Reconstruction, focused on attempting to reunite this country and integrate the newly freed African Americans. A series of 3 amendments in the U.S. Constitution passed between 1865 and 1870, known as the Reconstruction Amendments. These amendments established the civil rights of formerly enslaved people. The 13th Amendment abolished chattel slavery. The 14th Amendment granted citizenship to all people born in the United States. This is known as birthright citizenship, which was important because it allowed the children of formerly enslaved people to become U.S. citizens, and all of us since then born on the soil are U.S. citizens. And the 15th Amendment guaranteed the right to vote for all citizens regardless of race. With these new rights, Black Americans quickly set about establishing themselves as free people in this country. According to the University of West Florida Archive, race relations in the period of Reconstruction that followed the Civil War were relatively peaceful, and the residents of Pensacola enjoyed a fairly egalitarian community. No legal segregation in public places existed at that time. Last week, we heard about the Writing the Past project and learned a little bit about some of the people of color who were active during this period in Pensacola history. You might recall that the first obituary in the Writing the Past series was written by Tinyade Broughton and Scott Satterwhite. That article states, where they were once seen as property, the Black population now could vote, earn wages, serve in the military, and even hold political office. Black residents such as Salvador Pons were elected to public office. Pons served on the city council. It was Pensacola's first Black mayor in 1874. He is still the only Black person to ever serve as mayor of Pensacola. John Sunday, a Union Army veteran and son of an enslaved mother, established his wealth in real estate and was a civic leader. You remember Quint Studer is the white John Sunday. Remember that from last week? However, leadership positions, financial independence, and political engagement among the Black population were not sufficient to halt the Jim Crow laws that the white citizenry began to implement across this nation in the early 1900s. Within a few years, entrenched segregation and racial codes restricted voting, home ownership, education, and more in Pensacola and across this nation. Freedom is a constant struggle. It would be 50 more years before these deprivations of liberty would be officially addressed, when Black Americans would regain freedoms with the Supreme Court ruling in the momentous Brown v. Board case, and later the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. 100 years after the end of slavery, the descendants of formerly enslaved people were pushing back against legalized racism again. There are other examples too. During my short lifetime, women have lost the freedoms they once had to make decisions about family planning and their own health care. The Supreme Court's Dobbs decision of 2022 overturned the constitutional right to abortion in the United States that had been federally guaranteed for 50 years. With determinations about abortion care being made by the states, we have an inequitable patchwork system, and confusion reigns. Florida posts misleading and skewed information on its official health websites, and the state funded a major attack campaign against Amendment 4, which would have prohibited laws restricting abortion care. The amendment achieved 57% of the vote, but not enough to meet Florida's unusually high bar of 60% to pass the Citizens Constitutional Amendment. Doctors now are fearful of litigation and loss of their license, so they have denied care to people suffering pregnancy-related complications which endanger their lives and have resulted in many deaths. And we are seeing now the rise of what are called maternal care deserts, which are areas without access to obstetric health care due to obstetricians leaving states with restrictive laws, coupled with decreasing applications and training positions for new OBs. About 1/3 of all physicians are women, and we have 4 female Supreme Court justices, but these numbers have not been sufficient to hold the line on women's rights. Freedom is a constant struggle. You see, we presumed that these freedoms and rights were mostly safe. We may have presumed that we had some consensus around these things. We presumed that equitable and affirming teaching practices and access to high-quality information were of universal value in a democratic society. We presumed that a pathway to higher education and health care for women and traditionally oppressed groups was a given. We had fought and pushed for these freedoms, and we presumed that these issues were settled, but they are far from settled. These issues are far from settled or secure. Just take a look at the recent appointments to the UWF Board of Trustees. One of the appointees who will oversee our university, Adam Kissel, has advocated for privatizing all state universities and ending the GI Bill for military veterans and their families. Another appointee, Scott Yenner, is a member of a men's-only Christian nationalist organization called Society for American Civic Renewal. Yenner has made anti-Semitic comments and has called educated working women medicated, meddlesome, and quarrelsome. Yenner advocates for a, quote, traditional family life where women focus on child rearing, which is their legitimate domain, according to him. Granted, there has been some pushback against these gubernatorial appointments, and they still need to be confirmed by the Florida Senate, which needs to hear from us on this topic. But the fact that people who espouse these sorts of ideas are even being considered in these positions of power says something about where we are right now. These are arcane ideas that we thought were out of favor. They went out of favor in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Do we remember the Mary Tyler Moore Show or Claire Huxtable on the Cosby Show or Murphy Brown? I mean, these are old shows. If you're young, you don't know about them because we've already solved those issues a long time ago, we thought. We may have presumed that we as a society would continue to progress with greater levels of freedom, justice, and mutual prosperity. This is not uncommon. Progressive-minded people generally think of our situation as perpetually moving toward a brighter future. However, societies don't really work like that. We take one step forward and then 3 steps back. We solve problems, and the resolutions that we have devised bubble up into new challenges. In the words of author Kurt Vonnegut, our brains have proved to be terribly dangerous and destructive. The bigger our brains get, the more catastrophic it becomes. The philosopher Erich Fromm echoes this idea. He says, the development of our intellectual capacities has far outstripped the development of our emotions. We get into trouble being ruled by primitive drives. So maybe like me, you've been confused and baffled by all this catastrophic turn of events. Maybe you feel a sense of whiplash, like why is this all happening? I don't necessarily have any good answers for you, but it does seem like our current moment has been years in the making. In How Fascism Works, Stanley writes about the process that Germany went through by which government institutions gradually became Nazified, moving from liberal democracy organizing principles to National Socialist principles, primarily fealty to the Nazi leader Adolf Hitler. Stanley saw similar processes at work in 2018 when his book was published, when there was a movement toward unifying around loyalty to an ethnic identity and loyalty to a single leader. Stanley identifies 10 pillars of fascism that may sound familiar. One pillar on its own may not signify fascism, but the presence of all of these pillars together and the normalization of these concepts is a sure sign. I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining fascism and what it looks like. You can just pay attention to the news for that, but I do want to review the pillars so you might notice themes. 1, appeal to a mythic past. We were once great and we will be again. 2, use of propaganda, high on emotion, low on facts. 3, attack on intellectuals, doubt the experts. 4, creation of a sense of unreality. Nothing can be trusted, not even your own senses. 5, devotion to hierarchy. Leaders deserve loyalty just for being them. 6, emphasis on victimhood. Look at what they're doing to us. They are destroying us. 7, anti-urbanism, hostility towards cities, the sources of decadence and immorality. 8, demand for law and order. The people in the outgroup are criminals and parasites. 9, sexual anxiety. The people in the outgroup are morally depraved rapists and pedophiles. 10, romanticization of work. The people in the outgroup are lazy and undeserving. Fire them all. Dismantle public programs and safety nets. The philosopher Peter Ludlow tells us that these concepts become alluring when people feel betrayed by traditional institutions. Ludlow cites neoliberal economics and foreign policy that set off a chain reaction of debt and poverty and migration and more debt and more despair. He continues, perhaps the way that fascism comes about is first by us failing to provide equitable economic conditions, and by us failing to fight corruption, and by us failing to safeguard and protect democratic institutions. These problems open the doors to fascism and provide opportunity for despots to play on our fears and our hidden prejudices. You see, although we extol the virtue of freedom, the state of being free generates anxiety. We may be anxious about what we have compared to others. We may be anxious about what is to come and what it means for our position in the world. It's a lot to carry. It is natural for people to want to soothe their anxieties. Erich Fromm observed that free people face a difficult choice between authenticity and security. Fromm is one of those brave and insightful prophetic voices that I've been drawing on recently, along with Simone Weil. Both Fromm and Weil were Europeans of Jewish ancestry who fled the continent during World War II, and both were political activists and philosophers who wrote extensively about the rise of fascism and the Nazi Party in Europe. They produced anti-fascist works in which they imagined social orders based on humanism and communalism. You are likely more familiar with Fromm than with Weil. Simone Weil only lived to the age of 34 and has been rediscovered posthumously through her writings. Fromm's most well-known book is called Escape from Freedom, published in 1941. One summary describes the book this way: Escape from Freedom examines the paradox of human freedom. Though it is cherished, increased freedom also brings anxiety, responsibility, and a quest for surrendering individuality. The book considers the conflict between two human yearnings, the yearning for freedom and the yearning for security. Authoritarian leaders like Hitler in Germany and the current administration enchant individuals and groups who seek to escape from the burdens of self-responsibility. Fromm looks back to the European feudal period, which lasted about 600 years from the 9th to the 15th century. He writes, what characterizes medieval society in contrast to modern society is the lack of individual freedom. One was born into a certain economic position which guaranteed a livelihood determined by tradition, just as it carried economic obligations to those higher in the social hierarchy. If you know your history of the Middle Ages, you'll recall that the feudal system gradually gave way to capitalism as some of the serfs and peasants put their skills of metalwork and carpentry and baking and what have you to use among their neighbors and became members of the petty bourgeoisie. These small shopkeepers and artisans owned property, the means of production, which gave them some freedom from the kings and lords and gave them more control over their own life and decisions. However, this sort of freedom has its challenges. Individual people take on so much responsibility in a capitalist system. We are alienated from one another. Ours is the gain, and ours is the risk too. Fromm writes, it becomes man's fate to contribute to the growth of the economic system, to amass capital, not for purposes of his own happiness or salvation, but as an end in itself. Man became a cog in the vast economic machine, an important one if he had much capital, and an insignificant one if he had none. Many feel so insignificant. The vast power, irrelevance, and inscrutability of the political system leave the individual voter feeling small. We crave something else to help us feel bigger. Weil wrote that people fill the void with adoration of the great and money. Fromm observes that some people overcome their sense of nothingness by aligning themselves with the nation. Then he is everything, the narcissism of the leader who is convinced of his greatness and who has no doubts is precisely what attracts the narcissism of those who submit to him. Fromm wrote this in 1979. About a year ago, Joe Vinson presented a wonderful talk entitled Seeking Justice in a Disordered World. In that talk, he spoke of positive liberty and negative liberty. He said, in 1958, political theorist and philosopher Isaiah Berlin introduced the concept of positive liberty and negative liberty. Negative liberty, he said, is the absence of constraints or obstacles. Positive liberty is the presence of self-determination and self-realization. In simplified terms, negative liberty is freedom from, and positive liberty is freedom to. So Fromm also addressed positive and negative freedom. Freedom from, according to Fromm, is based in fear. Freedom from seeks relief from uncertainty and from restrictions placed on the individual by other people and by institutions. The negative freedom, known as freedom from, views others with suspicion. Negative freedom asserts that social expectations and obligations tie us down. Paradoxically, pursuing freedom from can reduce our freedom by removing the accountability and limitations that have helped to keep all of us tied together in a single garment of destiny. Witness how we become fragmented, confused, isolated, and angry when we no longer feel drawn together as a community. People turn on each other and abandon their neighbors to please the powerful leader. Fromm wrote that pursuing security through freedom from destroys freedom and the integrity of the individual self. Fromm believed that freedom, too, is the healthy form of freedom because it is the form where the individual retains the capacity to be creative, to act as an authentic self. Freedom, too, is about communing with nature and with other humans. Freedom, too, is about being our true self. But being your true self requires knowing yourself, and getting to know yourself is scary. In terms of getting to know ourselves, Weil talks about embracing our insignificance in a way, instead of rejecting it and trying to be bigger than we really are. Fromm also writes about the liberatory power of coming to terms with our insignificance. Here's Fromm. I knew that we counted little in comparison with the universe. I knew that we were nothing, but to be so immeasurably nothing seems in some way both to overwhelm and at the same time to reassure. Amid that chaos of illusions into which we are cast headlong, there is one thing that stands out as true, and that is love. Fromm and Weil did not believe that we were insignificant in the sense that we could not accomplish much. Their focus on insignificance was on not trying to control everything, not trying to control other people the way the leader and his minions are doing. Fromm encouraged us to embrace a less human-centered perspective, to give up our imaginary command over the world, seeing the world no longer as if we were the center. Weil and Fromm both saw true freedom as a condition of rootedness in connection with others. Weil believed that unrootedness, being free from obligations to others, was a threat to the human soul. She wrote that unrooted people feel bound only to money and the imagined nation. Being rooted means having obligations to participate in community life, feeling connected to place, and maintaining links through time. Roots nourish humans to fully grow and develop spiritually. People who are cut off from community, who seek security, and who want to conquer uncertainty are susceptible to the temptation of fascism. Isolation and poor attachments to others generate anxiety, and Fromm says anxious people will surrender their freedom to dictators of all kinds. Security and certainty feel like ways to manage anxiety, but they also stoke more anxiety because they don't meet the core need of connectedness and rootedness. This is just a small bit of explanation for how we got here and also the beginning of a map for our path forward. In the last few years, I've had so many conversations gathered in small groups of friends talking about the importance of keeping our ties, checking in with each other, showing up for each other, radiating our care and concern from within our smaller chosen communities outward to the larger world. In the second part of this talk, I will go into more detail about specific actions we might take in that effort. So today, again, we stand here facing freedom or fascism, freedom or authoritarianism. And we have these voices of Fromm and Weil who lived through the rise of fascism. They fled the Nazis. They wrote and organized for the liberatory world that they envisioned. They both saw love and connectedness as the only solutions to driving out fascism. Love is the greatest gift of the Spirit, and love is the spirit of this church. But in the words of the incredible prophetic writer James Baldwin, loving anybody and being loved by anybody is a tremendous responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lauren Ansaldo. And we will have our closing hymn now, We Shall Be Known.
Shall be known.
Thank you. And now for the closing words. I Dream a World by Langston Hughes. I dream a world where man no other man will scorn, where love will bless the earth and peace its paths adorn. I dream a world where all will know sweet freedom's way, where greed no longer saps the soul, nor avarice blights our day. A world I dream where black or white, whatever race you be, will share the bounties of the earth, and every man is free. Where wretchedness will hang its head, and joy like a pearl attends the needs of all mankind. Of such I dream my world. May strength, joy, and tenacity be with you now and through the coming week. Go in peace.